you talked about empathy and about not seeing any one group of people as the enemy. I imagine that's not that easy given what you have experienced, especially given that you may be interacting with Israelis or, for that matter, American Jews who are inclined to be sympathetic or supportive of what the Israeli government is doing. How did you manage that psychologically and emotionally for you to be able to get to the place where you can say that Israelis are not the enemy and that the enemy is ignorance and fear and inhumanity?
It's a long path. It's the path of healing. It's not an easy path. It's a very difficult path because I had to acknowledge first the trauma and pain that I was carrying with me and to process this trauma and pain and then try to relate to others to their trauma and pain as well. I recognize that the system itself is an oppressive system. There is no question that the Israel as an entity and the Israeli system and government is a colonial settler project. But also, it would be unwise to not recognize that it is also a project of trauma, of a collective intergenerational trauma that blind them from seeing my pain, which is their pain as well. And what I had, the opportunity that I had, which many Palestinians don't have in the West Bank and in Gaza and other refugee camps as well in Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria. They don't have the sense of safety. And in the United States, for the first time, I had the sense of safety. I felt safe enough, and I had people who helped me. I had a trauma therapist who I was meeting with twice a week for a whole year to process my trauma and pain. And during that process itself, I realized that the emotions themselves, when you have heightened emotions, they can blind you from seeing the truth. And there is this line of a song that stayed with me, which says, when you let go of fear, the truth will appear. So simple, so clear. And this is the base that I function on. So understanding the Jewish trauma, what happened during the Holocaust, 6 million people, the anti-Semitism, and the horror of the trauma that the Israelis themselves did not get the chance fully to recover from. They were running away from it. The project itself to create Israel is basically an escape from facing the reality that Ashkenazi Jews were facing mainly in Europe. And through that, I started channeling that energy of human rights and equality and understanding that I would not compromise on justice itself if I am empathetic. It's like a mother who see her son or her daughter acting irrationally and causing damage and still out of love tell them that you should not be doing this and these are the rules of the house. And the rules of the house for me, for humanity, is justice, and justice is restorative. And to have restorative justice, we have to have understanding of the pain, the loss, the trauma, and the needs that people have.
And at what point did you become a Buddhist? And maybe if you can talk about how your Buddhist faith intersected with these understandings.
Yes, Buddhism itself is a faith of practice. I did not renounce Islam, which is a beautiful religion that I also grew up with, but I found Buddhism as a very practical faith, practical for regulating my emotions, practical to make me aware of others, practical in a way that actually strengthen my ability to have empathy and compassion and to root myself in nonviolence because I believe that the truth is by itself has the power and the capacity to bring justice. And the truth by itself, if it's regulated with good emotions, can also change one's stand if they are in deep pain and in deep horror. And this is what Anne Frank also talked about, despite all of the pain and horror that she faced. By the end of her book, as one of the friends mentioned to me and reminded me, she said, in spite of everything, I still believe that people are good at their hearts.
Hmm. Can you talk about where you were on October 7th and what that day was like for you, and then what thoughts and emotions it brought up in you?
October 7th, I was invited to a friend's birthday. And usually I take Shabbats off as well, so I don't keep my phone on. So I did not know exactly what was going on until the next day. So in the morning, I opened my phone and it was literally exploding with messages and missed calls. And directly I went to see the news and I saw what was going on. And the first reaction it incited within me is fear, knowing the Israeli government and their way of action, their reactions and their oppression, collective punishment that I've witnessed. I knew that this is going to be a series of horror. So this is the first reaction I felt. It felt like a dream. Like, is this a reality? Because this is something we have not seen before. And it reminded me of the level of oppression, the level of injustice that I've seen in the West Bank. And I've seen before during the attacks on Gaza, the indiscriminate killing and bombing of people. And I felt that pain. And I have to share with you my empathy also. I felt the pain that are being experienced by Israeli mothers and fathers and siblings for those who were lost, because it is a loss and every loss is shared. The tears taste the same for us, the sense of loss, the sense of pain. And that is the human connection that I have. But I knew that this series of horror is going to be very painful. And during that time, we were already building a coalition here at Columbia. We issued a statement sending our condolences, in fact, to those who have family members and friends who were lost on October 7th.
How do you make sense of what happened in October 7th in terms of the attacks on civilians? I guess, why do you think, do you have any thoughts about why it was that the attack also targeted civilians? And what do you think is the right way to talk about the killing and abduction of Israeli civilians, which recognizes the preciousness of their lives without becoming part of a discourse that dehumanizes Palestinians?
This is again, it's a project of empathy. You have to empathize. You have to empathize with others, even if they are your oppressors. This is my faith. This is the way how I see the world. That does not mean I am neglecting and discounting the deep level of injustice, systematic injustice, the apartheid in the West Bank or the genocide that's going on. There are rules of engagement of war. The Geneva Convention talks about this, and targeting civilians is not okay. I see it as trauma response to what Israel has done. And you've talked about this in other podcasts. I've heard you talking about it. That when people lose their loved ones, the level of pain and despair that can be created can actually blind us from seeking justice. And I'm against the killing of civilians. I'm against the horror that children would face even by losing their parents. And I think this is the moral compass for me. So we have to ground ourselves, even though I see this as a product of the Israeli occupation and the systematic discrimination and the continuous oppression for more than 77 years. But we have to ground ourselves in international law and human rights and in the convictions that we have.
This has been a free preview of my weekly conversation. If you'd like to hear the rest and support my work, please consider subscribing at peterbeinart.substack.com.